There it goes. There it goes. Okay. I had forgotten to switch over my microphone properties for a second there, and then once I did, I forgot to check and see if my mic was active. But now that we've got that out of the way, hello to the three of you that are here. James, PGBQW, and Conspiracy Buff. We got any good conspiracies going on lately? Any presidents who were, killed unceremoniously by the deep state that I should know about? But yeah, it looks like and we got Crusading Fish here. So maybe we got 4 viewers and the thing's just telling me there are 3. That's the true conspiracy. They're trying to make it look like I got a small audience when really I have a slightly bigger small audience. So today we're trying to end off the section of the book that goes into Harley Quinn's childhood. I just got a text reminding me that the election's coming. I know it's coming. I can't wait for it to be over. But yeah, last time I took a look, and it looked like chapters 3 and 4 together are about the size of, the first one of the first 2 chapters. So I think we'll be able to tackle them both today. If I remember correctly, we last left off. Some mob boss wanted to sell 7-year-old Harley Quinn into a trafficking operation, and Harley is trying to escape that, running through the fairgrounds that her and her dad had explored earlier in the day before her dad got arrested. And her mom's on the way to try to pay a ransom, but they were saying they were going to sell her off anyway. You know what? Why do we only have 1 page viewer? Let's go double page. Wait, what's the second one? This is the last one. Cover. How does that work? Okay. So does that treat the cover as a singular page? And so chapter 3 will be over here? Yeah. Okay, sweet. Do we still believe that Bush did 9/11, or are we pinning that tragedy on someone else now? I think wasn't it like Saudi Arabia or something? Did you say conspiracy? I did. No book today, just DCAU conspiracies. No, we're gonna do the book. It's not slightly bigger because it's nearly twice as big. There you go. That's a way to look at it. But yeah, so we're gonna breeze through chapter 3 and 4. I think I was saying last time that whenever we get to page breaks is when I'll do notes instead of waiting between chapters, because the chapters tend to be long. This chapter's not quite as long today, so I guess we'll wait and see what the notes are looking like. James says he's going to post another one of our panels after this stream. So there you go. We got content for days. But yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's hop into this. For those of you who haven't been here with us before, I don't know if that counts for any of you, but in case it does, usually when I go through these books, I have this spreadsheet over here where I take notes. If it would ever, there it goes. That's not the right notes. That's our last book. Load the correct page of the spreadsheet, please. Yes, that's my email, I know. But yeah, so I have this page over here where I take notes. Usually it's character appearances, locations, like important objects, usually stuff that's going to be capitalized, stuff that might make it non-canon, stuff that references in-show events, timeline notes, concrete, that's like if anything had a distinct origin in the DCAU, That's like the, hey, this thing is mentioned, so this has to be after XYZ episode. Like the bat signal or Riddler, first appearance, stuff like that. We got a pop culture one, and then like weather, if it's like it's hurricane season or it's winter weather, and then just general other clues that might help. So yeah, we're gonna hop on in to chapter 3. I've got to try to pay attention to both my book and the PDF, because the PDF is not the pages aren't spaced the same way that the book is. So I gotta try to keep up to be sure I'm flipping the pages properly for you all. I say we blame Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is behind everything. That one was dope. Oh, I assume you're talking about the panel. But yeah, so let me see, how do I get this full screen again? I did it last time. There we go. Full screen. Boom. All right. There wasn't much fun in the funhouse now. In fact, it was downright creepy. Except for the faint glow from an exit sign here and there, the place was completely dark. Harleen wasn't afraid of the dark, not really, but she wasn't that crazy about it even when there weren't a couple of bad guys after her. She felt her way along a wall and came to a door. Immediately, she knew this was the door she and Daddy had mistaken for the way out. She had no idea how she knew. Maybe it was just the way the knob felt in her hand. She slipped inside and closed it silently behind her. The smell of sawdust and chemicals was heavier than ever. Harleen felt as if she were stifling. Maybe this hadn't been such a good idea after all, she thought, feeling her way along another wall. This was a small room with no place to hide, and it would probably be the first place Tony and Spike would look, using the light on Spike's phone. Abruptly, she tripped over something and fell on a bunch of paint cans and plastic bottles. If Tony and Spike were in the funhouse already, they must have heard that, Harleen thought. Biting her lips together to hold the tears in, she kept very still, listening for their voices, but all she heard was her own heart pounding like a big bass drum. After a bit, she got to her feet and, keeping close to the wall, moved more carefully, feeling ahead with her foot for any more obstacles. She tried to remember what the place had looked like with the lights on. Suddenly, she came to another door. Her heart leaped. She didn't remember seeing another door when she and Daddy had been there earlier. It was unlocked, but to her dismay, it wasn't a way out, just a closet. There were lots of shelves on one wall. Another had tools hanging from the pegs. But the wall opposite the door was bare, except for something like a metal cabinet set right into it. Harleen pulled it open. There were lots and lots of switches, the circuit breaker. Well, this was a house, after all. Daddy had taught her all about the circuit breaker at the tenement. It was enormous, but he had showed her the switches for their apartment. When the power failed, sometimes it was because a circuit had become overloaded. When that happened, a switch would flip, and you had to flip it back to get the power back on. Daddy showed her how to do it and warned her to leave all the other switches alone, especially the ones for other people's apartments. Mommy hadn't liked Daddy showing her the circuit breaker. She said Harleen was too young. But Daddy said that there might be a power cut when he wasn't home and Mommy couldn't leave the apartment. Like if one or two or even all three of the boys were sick. Then she'd be glad she could send Harleen down to the basement. Abruptly, the muffled sound of Tony and Spike's voices brought her back to the present. They were sure to find this room, unless something distracted them. Impulsively, she reached up and flipped the main switches. The lights went on, and there was a cacophony of silly music and recorded laughter as the funhouse came to life. With all the noise, Tony and Spike would be so confused, they wouldn't know where to look first. With any luck, she could sneak out the back door, and they'd never know. Or, she thought, and stepped out of the closet and looked around the workroom, she could get them before she left. Harleen found a tool belt lying on the floor near several cans of spray paint. bags of glitter in every color, and several bottles of glue of various kinds, including, she smiled, super. The belt was too big for her, but she discovered she could wear it slung over one shoulder, like a Miss America sash, and stuff would stay in the pockets. She stuffed them full of glitter bags, some spray cans, and lots of super glue. She meant to open the workroom door just a crack to see if Tony and Spike were nearby, but she froze with her hand on the knob. She couldn't just stay there until they'd corner her. They'd do something to make sure she couldn't get away. And when Del Vecchio came back, everything would get worse. Plus, they were going to kill her mommy. She had to help Mommy. Harleen pulled the door open a tiny crack and put her eye to it. "I'm gonna cripple that little brat," she heard Spike yell over the music and crazy laughing, "and whoever's in here helping her." Let me flip the page. There we go. In spite of everything, Harleen couldn't help grinning. Okay, so there's a quick page break right there. Right off the bat, two things to take note of. They mentioned Miss America, so I'm going to throw that in the pop culture. And then, something for the other clues. Cell phones have flashlight technology already, which you would think shouldn't be the case during a time where Harley is 7 years old. But yeah, what you got going on in the chat? Are we part of the? I don't know what you mean there, Dia Wizard or Diazaward. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I will say definitively, I am not part of any pedos. That's not my scene. And if it's anyone's scene here, y'all can go ahead and leave, because I don't want to be mixed up with that scene. Crouched behind one of the funny mirrors, Harleen listened for the men's voices over the silly music and recorded laughter, trying to figure out where they were. If she held very still and strained her ears, sometimes she could catch Spike cursing and saying he was going to blow her head off. Just make sure you don't accidentally blow my head off, Tony told him. Harleen was pretty sure if that happened, it wouldn't be an accident. Tony probably wasn't any safer from his hothead partner than she was. Not that Tony was any better than Spike. Spike hated her personally, but she wasn't even a person to Tony. Just a thing to hang on to until his boss came back with his pervo friend. Harleen had heard pervos did things to kids but no one had ever told her what, which probably meant it was a sex thing. She knew sex was how babies were made, although she didn't know the details, and with 3 baby brothers she didn't want to. But it seemed obvious that if sex was how grown-ups had kids, they weren't supposed to feel sexy about kids. Which meant she had to escape before Del Vecchio came back with his friend. Harleen peered around the side of the mirror again, then ran to the vertical rollers. Just as she reached them, she heard Tony holler, "I got her! Over here!" Reaching into one of the belt pockets, she grabbed a handful of glitter and turned around to find Tony was frighteningly close. He laughed at her, and she blew gold glitter into his face. Tony yelped, stumbled, tripped over his own feet, and fell to his knees, spitting and rubbing his eyes. Harleen laughed as she let the rollers pull her through backward, splashing them with glue as she went, even though the chemical smell almost knocked her over. The label on the bottle said it was strong and quick drying. She hoped it didn't dry before Tony and Spike could test how strong it was. Harleen turned to hop across the moving floor. She and Daddy had figured out how to cross it without falling down. She spread more glue on the shifting sections, giggling. This really was funny. Once Tony and Spike got through the rollers to the floor, it was going to be hilarious, like watching 2 of the 3 Stooges. Hey, take off your jacket, Spike yelled. But it's new, Tony whined. Just leave it, Spike roared. He sounded like an animal. Give me a little help here, said Tony, still whining. I can't get my arm out. Harleen heard the sound of thick cloth ripping. The padding on the rollers was nice and soft, but the rollers were really strong. Tony's head appeared. He still had gold glitter in his hair and all over his face. Hey, I see ya! Tony yelled. She's right there! You, kid! What's your name? Stay there! Was he really that stupid? Harleen wondered, shaking her head and laughing. I mean it, kid! Stay right where you are! Tony struggled mightily for a few seconds and finally came through without his suit coat and with his hairy man boobs showing because he'd lost half the buttons on his shirt. Spike was right behind him, and he'd lost his suit coat too, along with his tie. His shoulder holster was all twisted around, and his Weasley face was red with fury. I'm gonna kill you, you little brat, he promised her. You gotta catch me first, big boy, she said in her tough cookie voice. They were so mad they didn't even notice the floor was lava. No, the floor was moving. Harleen marveled. They just came at her and down they went on top of each other. She burst into loud, hearty giggles as they tried to extricate themselves from the floor and each other. Could they really be that stupid, she wondered? That they would stop to think after, that they wouldn't stop to think after what she'd done with the rollers? No, she realized, they thought she was stupid, which made them twice as stupid, and a riot to watch. While they went on trying to pull themselves off the constantly moving floorboards, she leaned forward and spray painted their faces a bright blue. Both of them started howling and cursing and trying to rub their eyes, except their hands were stuck to the floor or to each other. Tony suddenly let out a cry that was very close to a scream. He'd finally pulled his hand free, but left a lot of skin on the floor. This was gonna hurt for weeks. You little shit! Spike snarled at her as paint ran down his cheeks like electric blue tears. I'm gonna kill you, I swear to God! He had only one hand stuck to the floor, and he was trying to pry it off without skinning his palm. His legs were stuck across 3 boards, moving in different directions at different speeds. Tony was actually crying with pain now. I need something to wrap around my hand, Tony sniveled and started pulling at Spike's shirt with his other hand. Tear off your sleeve so I can use it as a bandage. Oh, I need to turn the page. So it'd be better if it was like a book on tape where, you know, if you hear that sound, it's time to turn the page. But it is what it is. I'm the book on tape. Let's see, where was I? Get away from me! Spike swatted his hand away, but Tony kept tugging at him, and somehow Spike's gun fell out of his shoulder holster. Tony reached for it, but Spike grabbed it first. Put that away! Tony ordered him, sobbing now. Before you... The explosion knocked Harleen flat on her back and made her ears ring painfully. At first, she thought the fun house had blown up. She could smell something harsh and burnt, like a whole bunch of fireworks had gone off right in her face. But it wasn't fireworks she saw, sitting up and clutching the belt with both hands. Spike's gun had gone off in Tony's face, which didn't even exist anymore. Even with the floor moving back and forth under him, Tony was still up on his knees, one hand clutching Spike's sleeve at the shoulder, as if he were about to rip it off Spike's arm and wrap it around his hand. Without a face, he had no expression, but Harleen half expected to hear him whine. See, I told you this was gonna happen! And Spike was just staring at him, like this was one more of Tony's stupid mistakes. After another second or two, Tony crumpled in a way that was absurdly graceful, like a ballet dancer doing the dying swan. It was the last deranged straw in a night gone stark raving mad. Harleen burst out laughing. She laughed so hard and so loud, it drowned out the ringing in her ears. When she tried to get up, she collapsed holding her middle. The belt slipped off her shoulder, spilling glue bottles, spray cans, and glitter everywhere, and she was laughing too much to do anything about it. Far from the shifting boards, she rolled on the floor, kicking her legs and pounding her fists. You cold-blooded... Oh, hold on, that's Tony's voice. You cold-blooded little shit! Spike shouted at her. You think that's funny, you sick little freak? The sound of his angry voice made Harleen's laughter cut off as she jumped up. Spike was still stuck to the floor. So was his gun. He tried to pull himself free and couldn't. You want funny? I'll show you funny! Spike's face was so twisted with rage. The blue paint looked scary, not silly. When I get loose, I'll make you laugh your head off, you little monster! Harleen looked around, spotted an exit sign, and ran for it. And that's another page break, so we'll put in we got one more note here. I think it was we got a mention of the Three Stooges, I believe. Where was that? I want to, mark the pages at least, but the Miss America thing was page 30. Excuse me for the sneeze. Sometimes it just be like that. And then the Three Stooges were page 31. Alright, so now we are at the next section. Let me pop in the chat, see what you guys are going on about. Well, I completely forgot that the Floor is Lava challenge was a thing. I vaguely remember finding it fun. Yeah, I imagine it's not as much fun once you're an adult and you're a lot just bigger and take up more of the floor and less imaginative, but the secret origin of Dr. No Face. Is that a character? Wait, is his face ripped off? It's not ripped off. He fucking shot it off. He pulled a Pulp Fiction and accidentally shot the dude. Tony is Phil Lamar, and Spike is John Travolta. Really? There's that much of a lag? How do we know that the lag is that long? I don't know why it would be that long. I've cleared up so much room on my computer. I might just have really bad I might have really bad internet connection. I'm not sure what's going on or why, and I apologize for it. But I'm gonna keep reading and pretend that things are okay. James is supposed to be selling me a computer. I don't know if that'll change things. We haven't seen each other since COVID started, so I'm not sure how I'll go about getting that. But if it's an internet thing, I don't know that that'll change it. Maybe this would have been a hilarious cartoon, Harleen thought. A grown man chasing a little kid around Coney Island after dark, yelling about how he was going to make her laugh. Or maybe not. She didn't know if Spike had managed to get his gun off the floor and didn't want to find out. But the way he was running, she was afraid he might actually catch up with her. A grown-up smoker shouldn't have been able to run like this. Harleen should have left him panting and puking without the breath to curse at her. But he kept coming. She couldn't get far enough ahead to lose him. And when she looked over her shoulder, he seemed to be gaining on her. Harleen tried to go faster as she ran through the park into the food area and finally beyond that to the stretch along the beach. The games booths. Maybe she could get into one of them. Or she could jump into the water. Maybe Spike couldn't swim. No, all adults could swim. Well, most. But a lot of them didn't swim very well, and they never wanted to go in with all their clothes on. But Spike didn't have all his clothes on, just his underpants, his shirt, and his shoes. The rest was stuck to the funhouse floor. She was hoping he'd hesitate to jump into the water long enough for her to get away. He wouldn't be able to hold his breath as long as she could, not after running for so long. She wasn't nearly as out of breath. Gymnastics had built up her stamina. When she got to the pier, she made a sharp right turn. It was high tide. She saw with a surge of hope, she could launch herself off the end of the pier like a flying fish. Abruptly, she was face down on the rough, splintery wood, with an enormous weight pressing down on her back, squashing her so she couldn't breathe. "How about this?" Spike panted. "How's this for funny?" He was kneeling on her with all his weight. He was going to squash her like a bug, and she couldn't even get enough air into her lungs to scream. Then suddenly, he was dragging her upright by the back of her neck. "You know what's even funnier than that?" He sounded vicious, even though he was out of breath. "Del Vecchio's pal who pervs on kids. If you thought a guy with his face blown off was a hoot, that guy will have you tripping." Spike threw her down on the pier and knelt over her. I gotta flip the page. And knelt over her. Where was I? "Let me give you an idea of what he's got in store for you." Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Fuck. I know that they're not actually doing the thing, but like they're talking about the thing and it's uncomfortable, and I should have known, well enough to give a content warning at the top of this. And I didn't think about it until now. Here we are. So, if this is uncomfortable for you, I don't blame you if you leave. But I think we're about to get past it. So, it's up to your discretion. Where was I? Where was I? Maybe this was a hit. Okay. How's this for funny? Okay. And then what he's got in store for you. Got it. Okay. "Get away from her, you son of a bitch!" There was a loud crack and a splash of blood as Spike's head bent sideways so sharply his ear hit his shoulder. He kneeled over and Harleen found herself staring up at a woman holding the great big strong man hammer in her hands. Oh, holding the great big strong man hammer. Got it. Strong man hammer. Not. Oh my god, is this how Harley fucking got the idea for the mallet that she always carries around? "Mommy!" Harleen threw herself into her mother's arms and buried her face in her neck. Mommy hugged her tight for a long time. Harleen almost broke down in tears, but Mommy wasn't crying. She was too brave and strong. She still had the mallet in one hand. If Mommy could be brave and strong, she could too. She did come very close to breaking down when she told Mommy what had happened, how the bad guys had beaten Daddy up, and the cops hadn't even cared. Mommy looked very serious as she listened, but her eyes stayed dry, so Harleen forced her own tears back. After a while, Mommy let go of her and looked at Spike lying on the pier. "Here, take this," she said, holding out the hammer to Harleen. Wide-eyed, Harleen took it from her and hefted it. The hammer was heavy, but to her surprise, not as heavy as it looked. Not so heavy that she couldn't have used it herself if she'd had to. She looked it over from one end to the other. The handle was smooth from the thousands of hands that had swung it, trying to ring the bell. She hadn't seen a single person who was strong enough to do that. Even her daddy had only got it to the halfway mark. Because it wasn't all about the hammer, Harleen thought. It was heavy, but you really had to be strong if you were going to ring any bells with it. Not just strong enough, but good enough. You had to be worthy. The sound of a splash brought Harleen out of her reverie. Spike was gone. Mommy had rolled him off the pier. "So, you ready to go home now?" her mother asked in a light voice, like this was the end of a day out, not the middle of the night. Harleen nodded and held up the hammer. "Can we keep this?" "Sure," her mother said, "but I think we'd better wash it off first." "Oh, yeah," Harleen said. "It's kind of icky." "I'll do it." And that is the end of chapter 3. And we're moving into chapter 4. Let's see. It's every couple minutes. It just pauses for like 10 seconds. For me, you aren't moving. I only hear you. I mean, anyway, it's got to be your internet. Yeah, pay for internet. Be a true American. No. Hey, I can still hear you, and that's the point. Isn't DCAU for kids, but like use dark theme? What the hell is this? Yeah, I mean, this feels. This so far feels even darker than the Rise of Senzu novelization, which was pretty fucking dark. But this is a lot darker so far. Is the lag still iffy? Because if it is, I can, since we're in between chapters now, I can end the stream and come back in. If someone wants to like drop in the chat, like once you've heard that, like if the lag is still pretty bad, if it is, I can just go to the thank you screen and give you guys a chance to refresh for the second part of the stream to come in with chapter 4 with maybe less lag. But that's also it's also not necessarily going to work, but it could be worth it if you guys think it's worth it. It's up to y'all. I'm gonna give. Are we better? Is everybody in here? Are y'all back? Are we good? I just noticed. I don't know if y'all are back in yet or not. But if you are, I just noticed at the bottom of my streaming program that it said skipped frames detected 100% over last 2 minutes. So I had pulled up Twitch like while I was talking, and the lag seemed to be like 5 minutes long. Like that was rough. So hopefully we are good now. If y'all are back, be like Danny and let me know that you're back. That way I'm not leaving anyone behind as we hop into the next chapter. Next chapter is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pages in the book, so probably like 3 pages in the PDF. So it's not going to be too terribly long. But I just need to know that y'all are here. I'm not lagging, am I? Like, okay, my Bohemian Girlfriend is back. I'm still getting 87% skipped frames. So I don't know what to do. I'm sure I'm lagging, but it was worth a shot. I don't. It's gotta be the internet, I guess. I don't know. But you know what? Fuck it. We'll do it live. If y'all are back, then I'm just gonna hop into it. I don't know if you two are the only ones that are back or not. It says we got 3 viewers. So I'm gonna just hop back into reading. We're gonna do chapter 4. We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna hope next week's better. I don't know what's going on. Daddy was waiting for them when they got home. The sun had come up by then. Mommy told her to go straight to bed. She'd wake her later. Harleen stayed awake just long enough to hear Daddy tell her that one of his friends bailed him out. But she fell asleep when Mommy started saying that she thought of his friend, or saying what she thought of his friends. It was all stuff Harleen had heard before anyway. Harleen slept much more deeply than usual, the way she did when her gymnastics teacher worked her extra hard and made her stretch for an hour afterward. Only this was more intense. Her fatigue was emotional as well as physical, like how she felt when Mommy and Daddy had an especially bad fight, the kind when Mommy would drag out suitcases and start throwing clothes into them, saying she'd had enough, and so had the kids. Harleen dreamed practically from the moment she shut her eyes, and though they weren't horrible nightmares, they hadn't been pleasant. They were filled with unhappy, angry people who didn't know what to do about their problems, except to blame someone else for them. She kept looking for Mommy and Daddy, and although they were nearby, in the next room or across the street or upstairs, she couldn't get to them. Sometimes they were too busy arguing with each other to see her. Other times they did see her, but they wouldn't come to help. Let's see. It's definitely lagging again, but what can you really do to stop it? Yeah, I've got no clue. I wish that I did. I just realized this wasn't full screen. When she woke all on her own at midday, her head felt like a balloon full of cotton balls, and her eyes were so heavy it was hard to keep them open. She shuffled out to the kitchen and found her parents sitting across from each other at the table. They looked startled, like they'd forgotten she was home. Maybe they'd thought she'd sleep longer. Mommy fixed Harleen a bologna and cheese sandwich and a big mug of tomato soup, and set it up on a tray table in front of the TV. Things had to be pretty bad if Mommy was letting her eat in front of the TV, Harleen thought. Her baby brothers were either upstairs with Mrs. D'Angela or down the hall with Paula, who'd gotten laid off again. That was extra bad. Let me flip the page. Mommy had turned the TV up a little louder than usual, enough to make it hard for Harleen to catch anything of what she and Daddy were saying in the kitchen. They were talking to each other in low, tense voices, and that was super extra bad. The longer they used their low, tense voices, the more super extra bad it got. It was better when they shouted at each other. When they did that, Harleen knew everything was going to be all right eventually. She didn't like it. They could say such mean things to each other. But it was like they both had built up a lot of pressure inside, and when they shouted, a safety valve opened to let it out. Then they could find their way back to okay. Harleen wished they had some other way to do that. They might feel better after one of their knocking down dragouts. That was what they called them, even though no one got knocked down or dragged out. But Harleen would cry into her pillow. How could people who loved each other, who loved her and her baby brothers, be so cruel to each other? Why didn't Mommy and Daddy know how awful it made her feel? Sometimes they sounded so mean. She couldn't believe there was any love in them, even for her and her brothers. She wanted to talk to her parents about all of this, but she didn't know how to explain her feelings without making it sound like she thought they were horrible people and she didn't love them. Sometimes, though, they were horrible, and sometimes, when they were at their most horrible, she felt like maybe she didn't love them. But that wasn't a bit true. Harleen knew she loved her parents with all her heart and soul because the idea of being without them was too unbearable to think about. She felt the same way about her baby brothers. All she wanted to get rid of was their dirty diapers. Hey, she thought, what if she toilet trained them? Diapers cost money, and if Mommy and Daddy didn't have that expense to worry about, they would be happy enough to stop fighting, especially in those low, tense voices. Okay, so we got not a lot of notes to take at that page break, but we do have two people mentioned here. We have Mrs. D'Angeli, and we have Paula. Those are the names. shit. I'm seeing skip frames 99% over the last 2 minutes. That's a bummer. Hopefully next week will be a bit smoother. All day, Harleen waited for her parents to blow up at each other, but they didn't. For a while, they shut up altogether. The atmosphere was awful. It was like being inside a house made of pain. Harleen tried to work up the nerve to ask if she could go to the playground around the corner, but after last night, she didn't think Mommy and Daddy would let her go out by herself for a long time. She considered asking if she could go help Mrs. D'Angeli or Paula take care of her brothers, but then she remembered they both charged extra for her. No matter how helpful she was, bringing her brothers back here was no-go in this atmosphere. They'd never stop crying, and she wouldn't blame them. Harleen curled up on the couch, hugging her knees and staring through whatever was on TV. Was it a DVD? She couldn't remember if she put one on or not. Yesterday had been the best day ever, and it was like it had never even happened. Her heart had been full of joy. Now she felt empty and alone. She wondered if this was how it felt to be in prison. When her parents were like this, it was even worse than being punished for doing something wrong. She felt as if she couldn't take another moment, but somehow she did. One after another, after another, after another. This was all the cops' fault. If they had treated her daddy the way they were supposed to, if they'd made a report about him getting punched out and then given them a ride home, everything would be okay now. It wouldn't have been the perfect end to the day, but she'd have slept in her own bed last night and woke up in the morning instead of feeling like a zombie in a house of pain. But the cops had acted like her daddy had done something wrong, and while they were doing that, the real bad guys captured her and tried to trick Mommy into coming to get her so they could hurt her, kill her. And did they know about Del Vecchio and his pervo pal? Did they even care? Okay, so in that we got mentions that DVD technology is a thing. So I'm gonna note that. Do I think there's gonna... Yeah, the Avengers Continuum will 100% get a trade release. DC doesn't sleep on, getting money until it's like fucking reprints of stuff that's like 20 to 30 years old, and then they're just like, I don't know. I don't know. People want that anymore. Let me see. The day lasted forever, like the hours were crawling by on hands and knees. No one went to get her brothers from the sitter, and Harleen began to worry even more. The low, tense voices started again, stopped for a bit, then resumed. Harleen wanted to cry, but she wouldn't let herself. Her daddy always told her, when she got nervous or worried, she should try to imagine what she'd be doing next week, how this would all be in the past. But she couldn't. It felt more like she'd been trapped in this horrible time forever. Flip the page. Put it back on full screen. Near the end of the afternoon, Mommy got out the suitcases. Harleen ran to her room, got into bed, and pulled the covers over her head. Sometime after that, Mommy brought her brothers in and told her to watch them. They all should have been cranky and restless, but they just looked spooked. Even Ezzy, who was the youngest, didn't fuss. After a while, Mommy came in with food for Barry and Frankie and a bottle of formula for Ezzy and left again. Harleen fed everyone, and the tense voices got louder. Almost over, Harleen whispered to Ezzy, rocking him gently. It's almost over. Barry and Frankie curled up on the floor with their blankets and went to sleep. Ezzy was quiet, but his eyes were still wide open. He didn't cry until the shouting started. Then he wailed and wailed and wailed. Barry and Frankie never stirred. Harleen sang all the songs she knew and recited silly rhymes, but nothing she did would comfort him. She could barely hear her parents over his crying. After a while, she wondered if that was why Ezzy was crying, to drown out Mommy and Daddy sounding so awful. If Mommy and Daddy asked me right now, I'd say I hate them both, Harleen thought. And for the first time, she didn't feel a smidgen of guilt. If anyone should feel guilty about anything, it was her parents. But they probably didn't. Grown-ups did anything they wanted, and kids could just lump it. After what seemed like forever, the shouting stopped, and the apologizing began. Ezzy quieted down and went to sleep. Harleen couldn't, so she was stuck listening to them. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm to blame. I know how hard things are. I promise I'll be more understanding. You'll see. No, I promise I'll do better. I'll work harder. Rotten cops, Harleen thought, wide awake, wishing she could doze off like a baby. They'd ruined everything. She tiptoed to the door, opened it, and peeked out. In the kitchen, Mommy was sitting on Daddy's lap, and Daddy was promising what happened yesterday would never ever happen again, and they had to stick together. Together they were going places. Daddy was half right. He went to prison. And that is the end of chapter 4. We have just a very few things to note. Is the names of Harley's brothers. We have what are they? Barry, Frankie, and Ezzy. And we had them mentioned somewhere earlier. Yeah, here they are. The 3 baby Quinzel brothers. So I'm just going to replace that with their names. Ezzy Quinzel. Barry Quinzel. And Frankie Quinzel. And there's a capital that doesn't need to be there. And there we go. That's it for today. Next week we'll be hitting chapter 5, which starts with Harley at 17 years old. Let's see, is that going to be the only chapter that we do? Let me double check how long these, let's see, 28 to 41, so that's like 13, 14 pages. Okay, so chapter 5 is a pretty short one. And then chapter 6 is a little bit longer, but not too long. So yeah, so next week we'll be doing chapters 5 and 6. Just flipping through, I'm seeing Star Labs, and I'm seeing okay, we're getting Gabriella Matthias. Gabriella, right? Is that it? Matthias, yes. Which for those of you who haven't read it, no, hold on. This is just a person. I don't need them. For those of you who haven't read it yet, Gabrielle Matthias was one of Harley's co-workers at Star Labs, who years later, in Harley Loves Joker, Emil Dorian turns into the Grayson, or the Grisson, however it's supposed to be pronounced. I say Grayson. James is convinced that it's Grisson. Harley Loves Joker is, as far as I am aware and concerned, part of the DCAU. So this seems like a way to kind of try to tie this story to that story. And I'm really excited to see it. It's actually some solid advice from her dad. Is her dad in this book like the Harley Quinn show one? I know just about as much in this book as you do. Right? I've only read these first 4 chapters. And so far, all I know is her dad was in with this little gang and screwed him over and ended up going to jail for a night, and now apparently is going to prison. But yeah, so we got chapters 5 and 6 coming next week. Hopefully the lag is a bit better. And then, you know, on Sunday we have our new video coming out. I think it's about the Rand Thanagar War. James is uploading one of our 24-hour live stream panels momentarily, so be on the lookout for that if you haven't seen it yet, or if you want to rewatch it. And then, you know, as always, next week, schedule James on Tuesday, Ted on Wednesday, me on Thursday, noon PST. I might hop back into doing like random impromptu streams over the weekend. I'm not too entirely sure. We'll just have to wait and see. But with all that said, I'm gonna go get some lunch. I'm gonna drop this onto the thank you screen. It might take a minute or two for you guys to realize that I'm gone. But you know, it's been fun. Kind of bummed about the lag situation. Hopefully I will be able to figure that out soon. But y'all take care. And I will see you when I see ya. Bye.